Hello and welcome to Canadian Culture Corner. This is Champions Online playthrough. As you can see, I finally made it into the hidden Maniacs lair after many legs. Today it's a little buggy, but it seems to be running a little smoother. Last time we discussed aspirational and dynamic heroes, and how your hero or character should be dynamic at pretty much, well, all times. Because the minute a character stops changing, really, there's just no point to the story anymore. Because they have to be ever-changing. They have to make mistakes. They have to overcome them. And there was a point I touched upon where I don't know if I did. And it's that, oh, well, the dynamic hero has a more tragic backstory. That's another point I wanted to address. And I just had the thought, yeah, okay, that's fair. Like, a great big mistake in the backstory, like, say, Bruce Wayne convincing his parents to step out of the theater or opera house, and Spider-Man not catching the one thug. And versus, for example, Superman's backstory. And, for example, or even Steve Rogers, where Rogers did nothing wrong. Actually, I have to admit, I'm kind of fond of Rogers' backstory. I'm not a big fan of the character, but I do like his backstory. He's got a really nice one. Ooh, I think I used up the last of my heals. I thought I had an infinite amount. Okay. Yeah, something to learn about this game. Actually, let's check out my items. I'm not... Oh. No. Wait. Yeah. That'd be a big no. Yeah. And yeah, as you can see, I still have a bit of a lag, but it's not as pronounced as the previous video where it was completely unplayable. There. Let's see. Oh shoot! I think I'm about to go down. All right. Actually, this is a case where I think the lag kind of saved me. And the thing about the backstory is, yeah, okay, you can have a really nice backstory, but initial motivation for the hero, for example, oh, he just wants to do good, like Superman, or even Captain America. Well, or even Cyclops from the X-Men. I really like Cyclops as a character. He as a kid, I didn't like Cyclops because I didn't understand the stoic type of character, but I understand it better as an adult, and I really like Cyclops. And I kind of think, well, what's wrong with the hero just wanting to do good? Now, it doesn't mean he's any less dynamic. He's idealistic, and I think the idealism could still lead to great stories in characterization. I mean, you look at Cyclops in the Chris Claremont run. He gets so much characterization. And yeah, I know there was Inferno, which kind of destroyed the character a lot. But you get other stories with him. Oh, I better be quiet because this is a great scene.
You're probably all wondering why we freed you. We're giving you your lives back to make you a once-in-a-lifetime forever. Big forces are joining together, and that means big heroes are going down. I know you want to be part of the mayhem.
Why is her cape stuck
You're
with it?
the Maniacs.
Alright, that's...
You don't have to be crazy, but it helps.
Okay, I think that was a bit of a glitch. Probably on my end. I know that champions can occasionally get buggy, but occasionally. But that said, I'm more of the opinion it's typically, your internet connection, your own, and especially now that I've moved to the countryside, where internet is kind of more the oddity than the norms, it seems sometimes. At least in the part of town where I'm almost at. But you know what? I've got no hard feelings about how slow it can be sometimes, because, well, it's just the way it is. It's a fact of life, and yeah, I lost my temper a little yesterday. It's just frustrating, but now that I've cooled off a little, I'm kind of thinking, whatever. Okay, I need to heal. Now, where was I? Oh, yeah. Now, you can start off with, like a kind of, I won't say dull, but like more idealistic backstory. But you have to remember that the character has to become fairly dynamic and has to suffer, love, grow, learn, change, because that's what the human condition is all about. And art is all about imitation of reality in some ways, just in the context of the human condition. And the human condition is really the heart of, all storytelling. And especially with superhero fiction. Now, in superhero fiction, in my opinion, there's, like in fantasy fiction, for example, in Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, Dragonlance, and even Tolkien's books, you're not always sure, I find, whether the character will make it out of it. I mean, in the Tolkien story, Turin is the main character of the Children of Húrin, and he doesn't make it out of there because it's a tragedy. Dragonlance, the characters will eventually be killed off when the authors are done with them, and once their lives are over, because they have a finite lifespan. Superheroes, you're not really supposed to kind of bring their life to an end at this point. I kind of think it's not, I won't say you're supposed to milk them, but you kind of are. You're supposed to stretch the story out. Okay, I just realized I got an item. Now, what I typically do for items like this is I kind of, make sure I have a lot of ego stuff before I remove, whatever points, because I like to have plenty of, firepower. Alright. Great. So I might wait a bit till I get a bigger ego boost for my character. Now, your superhero should, how do I put it? You should get into almost every day of their life. Like having these wild, fantastical adventures. You look at, like, by all rights, Superman, even in post-crisis, should have been like 70 or 80 because of all the stories that were told, how stretched out his story became. But who really... Okay, an old man Superman would be a cool story, but still, that'd be better off as an Elseworlds story. And maybe... an Elseworlds story, rather than further down the road. Because eventually in the post-crisis universe, I think Superman got to be about, 39 years old? Yeah, I think he was 39 before they rebooted everything for that, to destroy that universe, because, and destroy the comic books, because, why would anyone want to read the awesome post-crisis universe when they can read the, worst comics ever written in the New 52? Well, okay, almost some of the worst. Yeah, I'm a post-crisis fanboy. And nothing anyone says will ever change that, because I love the post-crisis universe. It's my favorite superhero universe. I know people like Marvel. Hey, I liked Marvel better as a kid, but Marvel status quo became God way too much. Yay! And so, like, you couldn't have Spider-Man move on in his life. You could up until 97. And I actually really loved the Clone Saga. I'll defend it to my last breath because it's a great story that progressed, well, the story. And they really made the Ben Reilly part of the story work. He was a dynamic, iconic character. And his attempt to, him being the original Peter Parker, I also support. Because it was him just trying to get his life back. And he can't, really. It was a tragedy. And it was to shift the genre from rom-com, which was what Spider-Man was, because Spider-Man originally was a rom-com, and shift it over to a more film noir superhero kind of tone and genre. They want to shift the genre to, I'm going to be honest, a better one. A more fitting one for Spider-Man. Because the Spider-Man cartoon was more film noir superhero stories. And that's so much more interesting. Hey, I'm not attacking rom-com. I love How I Met Your Mother. But the trouble is rom-com isn't what Spider-Man should be about. But from 1962 up until that terrible Chameleon story, it was entirely rom-com. Then with the Chameleon story, they started getting into the habit of, well, we'll just torture Peter Parker for sport. You know, like, let's see how much we can just destroy the character, which, you know, I don't like. Now, that should never be your motive as a writer. It's like, oh, you know what, I'll destroy the character. It's good writing. I mean, Didio and Quesada did it to all their characters, so why can't I? Well, you should love your character. Now, you do have to put them through hard times. Peter Parker just endured hard times. But what Howard Mackey and the other Clone Saga writers then did was they took that pain that Peter was going through, that kind of near psychotic break, and turned it into a very positive story. His marriage was on the rocks, so they had the marriage go through some rocks and then get back to what it was, well, what it should be, into a more mature, almost middle-aged love, which I thought was very romantic. They introduced a more action, adventure-based Spider-Man and more film noir type stories. They put Peter into the context of a superhero. Yeah, I know that sounds weird, but they shifted his story from one of romance to one of action. And they showed his flaws as well as his strengths. And he got to feel more heroic. He got to feel more kind and gentle by the end of this story. And at the same time, he was inspiring because look what he was able to endure. And yeah, I know he's a clone, but it's still, I found it was beautiful how much he was able to endure as a person and as a hero. And I kind of got the feeling that that was kind of the point. And yeah, okay, he suffered all this in the Chameleon story. Now, we love the character, and we're going to put him on the path of healing because, well, the problem with the previous story was it was bollocks, as the British would put it. And, you know, let's have this character kind of actually deal with his problems. And Ben Reilly, acting as a big brother type character, showed, okay, this is we need to get back to what Spider-Man really was. An iconic, aspirational hero who's dynamic, who's trying to help everyone's problems. And at least in New York, and save everyone. Well, maybe not solve all their problems, but like, who's trying to save everyone's lives and protect the little guy. And Peter had stopped doing that due to his trauma. But Ben really did want to do that. And Peter didn't. Also had come to hate his costume. So they kind of did a costume swap. Ben built up the mantle of Scarlet Spider. Peter became Scarlet Spider briefly. And Ben became Spider-Man, making the coolest Spider-Man costume ever. And, Ben got to be aspirational and inspirational for all of us, including the characters in the universe, putting Spider-Man into the position he should be, which is the big blue of Marvel. And Peter got relegated to a support character, yes, but his story was over. Over to an extent. The rom-com era was over. And Peter could then go have a family. And knocking up MJ and having her and Peter continue on, Peter as an honorary hero who sometimes comes out of retirement, and MJ as an advisor and maternal figure, as well as little sister of sorts to Ben, was, I found, really cool. It gave Spider-Man a family. And not a family that has to die every 2 issues, like Aunt May, whom I hate for that reason. As well as it brought up the importance of Aunt Anna, who was the strongest parental figure Peter had, highlighting her importance. And okay, I think that's about it. Now I'm gonna have to go soon, so yeah, I'll end my Clone Saga chat about how Peter's story. The writer started off, let's just torment the character, just willy-nilly, needlessly, and turned into, let's turn this into a larger arc. And with Ben, they built up a character in miniseries, in Backstories comics, over the course of several years, only to shaft him. And then they decided, every about 60 issue, no, I won't even say 60, like, every year or so we have to reboot Spider-Man. He was rebooted in 97 into essentially a street bum. 99, 2001, with the start of the Straczynski run. 2007 or 8 or so. 2012. Like, this is too many reboots. So you don't want to do that. You've got to build up your character. Like, Spider-Man's a good example. Now, let's say you start with one genre. You don't have to stick to it. You can shift eventually. And people might say, well, didn't that destroy the Spider-Man comics? Well, no. Clone Saga sold like hotcakes. So evidently there was a market. But the vocal minority here destroyed it. And that's where, yeah, I'm kind of biased. But I kind of find Spider-Man's a good example. Cyclops is a good example for the most part of building up your aspirational hero, but they're also kept as dynamic characters who deal with problems. Like Thunderbird died. Scott really was broken up. Scott Summers, I mean. And you've got Batman, when he's an iconic hero. But then, when Jason Todd dies, he's broken up about it, and he goes through a negative period of his life. Well, obviously, his back gets broken. He hits pretty much rock bottom. Then he starts this is worsened by the fact of, for example, Superman's death, his best friend. Hal Jordan, another great friend of his, turns evil, it seems. And, then he's building himself back up. And these arcs are important because you have to test your character. You have to test the aspirational, inspirational superhero. And in our comics that we're going to be, or superhero universe that we're going to start with an anthology series of, book, and then a series of novels, we are going to show just a beginning, and we're going to show how to do the dynamic hero, the aspirational, inspirational hero, but also try to show how dynamic they can be. And just because, for example, you get a Superman character doesn't mean he has to be a brute. I mean, Clark Kent is actually one of the smartest people on Earth in the Superman comics. But very few people think of that because they just see the odd movie or cartoon where he's not very bright. But actually, he is very bright. And you've got, we're going to be trying to showcase how you can do it, and as well as build up our own universe that way, and show, for example, that some of these big bruisers can be smart characters, and each character's got his own philosophy and belief system. And so next time, perhaps I'm hoping that I'll get to team up with Tommy soon again, and he and I can kind of discuss Kythos' mythology and build up Kythos' character, because I really like his design. I think he's got the best design of the characters we designed for these streams or videos. So, yeah. That'll be it for today. So like, share, subscribe, and leave a notification. Well, hit that notification bell with super strength to stay updated on our coming videos.